In this presentation, we're going to be talking about key activities that need to be performed to effectively implement your project management methodology. These are concepts from my work experience. I've been a consultant for a long time, but for about the past 15 years, I have been doing some intense work in methodology development and deployment for companies nationally and, in fact, globally. You'll get to see some of the lessons learned from planning and preparation activities that have helped to make the deployment successful. And as well, you'll get some insights to some materials taken from my new book, which is called The Complete Project Management Methodology and Toolkit, which is actually due out next month on June 6th, thereabouts, if my publisher is correct. And that is based on our Project PRISM methodology, and it includes a full process and practice guide, and as well as a toolkit on CD-ROM. So, with that stated, what we want to do is, first of all, establish a fundamental or a common frame of reference regarding what is a methodology. Everybody comes into the project management environment with different ideas about what this is. What I want to say here is my concepts, my ideas, so that we're all working from the same page, so to speak. First of all, a methodology is a composite package. It includes the processes, the practices, and the toolkit needed to effectively manage the projects in the organizations. In other words, it's not just one simple process sheet, but it's a combination of things. In fact, some organizations will add additional components to their methodology to include things like a glossary and a responsibilities list and things like that. So methodology is a component system, if you will, of different things put together. As well, a methodology is usually based on some kind of standard. So that is also a factor to consider. Another feature here is the purpose of the methodology. Well, I think everyone probably comes into this meeting considering that the methodology is something that will help you to manage projects better. And that is certainly a correct statement. However, there are some underlying considerations that are just as important, and that is the fact that in providing an approach to managing projects, we also want to create and sustain a business advantage as a result of the methodology. If you are in an organization of any size, you're going to have to get your business managers, your executives, if you will, to buy in to implementing such a methodology, because it is an intense experience, to say the least. And therefore, there's going to be costs associated with that. They are looking to obtain some business advantage from that methodology deployment. I noted three things here: revenue generation, operational effectiveness, and customer satisfaction. These are generally considered to be the prime interests of executives in organizations. And so you want your methodology to reflect on some benefit to those areas. In particular, I'll just note, for example, if your organization uses projects as a primary means of revenue generation, then your executive is going to want a methodology that effectively produces that revenue. And that goes on with the operational effectiveness and customer satisfaction as well. So there is that underlying purpose of business advantage to be achieved. Then we examine how it is used. Here, we're talking about collaborative processes for project management, technical management, and business management. Your methodology can encompass all three of these areas. And I particularly point out that there is a distinction between a project management methodology and a technical methodology. The technical methodology provides for excellence in in developing your product or service, in developing and delivering your product or service. In contrast, project management is focused on ensuring success of the project overall, and that includes business interests as well as technical interests. And so here it is, the list of 6 activities that are considered very important when implementing or deploying a project management methodology. This is probably a broader scope of activities than many people anticipate seeing, but we found that they're pretty much essential, and that they warrant attention because they will affect the success of methodology introduction in the organization. And by the way, that includes either developing the methodology or acquiring a methodology from your favorite methodology vendor. I wanted to point out the first bullet mentions form a methodology development team. Actually, on rethinking that, that should actually be form and use a methodology development team. Just one small correction there to point out that we're doing more than just forming the team. And so let's take a look at each of these individually. And the first one then is form and use the methodology development team. The first part of this is to ensure that you get the right people involved in the methodology development or acquisition process. Key points here are leadership, composition, and commitment. Methodology development and implementation can use an external consultant if desired, and such external consultants do bring expertise and experience that usually helps an organization to reduce time and cost for implementation, and as well as for development if that's what you're doing. But it's also very important that you do have an internal team that is held responsible for methodology deployment as well. And included in these are, or included in that team is some leadership roles and responsibilities. Prominently shown here is the PMO leadership role. And if you already have a project management office, a PMO, then that is the ideal location to place this initiative for developing and deploying a methodology. In fact, it is probably one of the prime responsibilities of a PMO that they develop and implement a methodology. As well, here's an interesting side note that I've observed from a number of organizations. Whenever an organization has developed or formed a methodology development team, as they develop it and implement it and then start maintaining it, that methodology development team actually becomes a PMO, in essence, after the methodology has been deployed. So if you don't already have a methodology, or a PMO rather, then this might be a way to advance a career, although it might take from several months to a year or more to get to that point. It is essential to keep senior management involved in this, and you may want to consider that external consultant for leadership. Again, usually provides for some level of cost saving and time saving when you're doing the methodology development and deployment effort. The team composition, I have listed here 3 to 5 primary team members. You know, you can have just about as many people on your team as you want, but you need to have 3 to 5 people who are intently involved. They need to be involved on at least a weekly basis, and maybe a few even on a day-to-day basis. Methodology deployment, running from concept to completion, is not a part-time job. Not if you have a deadline to get it out, and not if you want to see it in some reasonable amount of time. To that end, you want to have some key people that are constantly on the team who can answer questions as far as progress, as far as development activities, as far as approving the design of the methodology. And so to that end, I indicate also team commitment. You need to have people there who have the time to perform design and development work. This is why oftentimes external consultants are brought in who are qualified to develop methodology, because the primary team can't always release their people to work full-time on the details. They can work on the design and approval,